Hello and a very warm welcome back to Widowed AF. You're here with me, I'm your host, Rosie Gill-Moss, and I'm your constant on this journey. My guests come onto the podcast and they share their stories, and it has an enormous impact on the outside world. We're seeing that, hearing that in messages, in responses that we're getting. But what I don't have on this show a huge amount of is blokes. And I have a real life man today. So welcome to the podcast, Mark Heazle. Hello.
Morning. Thanks for having me.
Did I say your name right?
Mark Heazle. Yeah, that's right.
Yes. I'm so bad at pronunciations. I have to write things phonetically and things. So you were inspired by listening to Garant in episode 10 of season 2. So I shall make sure he knows that, because this is the kind of knock-on effect it has. Somebody comes on and tells their story, and it sort of prompts other people to want to come and share theirs. Sorry, I'll learn to speak hopefully at some point in this episode. So, Mark, tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me about your wife, Sharon, and I guess we'll get to the nitty-gritty in the process.
Yeah, sure. So, my name's Mark. I'm now, nearly 44 years old. We live in Norfolk with a family. I've been widowed since 2018. My wife, Sharon, died March 2018 after living with a very rare form of cancer for several years.
I noticed in your application that you were a March 2018 widow, and I am as well. What date did Sharon die?
14th of March.
I'm 12th. Way, grief twins. What kind of cancer did she have?
So she had a type of cancer called neuroendocrine cancer, which is very rare. And the easiest way to describe it, or not to describe the cancer, but most kind of reference points that people know is the same type of cancer that Steve Jobs from Apple had.
Okay.
And that he died from. So essentially, it's a kind of a very rare form of cancer that sort of attacks parts of the kind of neuroendocrine system.
And is that, sorry for my ignorance, would that be brain? Is that,
No. So in terms of diagnosis, it's some of the symptoms that Sharon had when she was diagnosed would point to a tumour on the pituitary gland in her brain. When they did scans, etc., they actually discovered that the tumour wasn't in her pituitary gland, so they had to kind of do lots of pretty invasive kind of biopsies, etc. And they finally found some tumours in her liver, which kind of they weren't the primaries, they were secondaries. But what the tumours were doing were producing a chemical, so they're functioning tumours in terms of the medical term for the tumour that produces a chemical, telling her adrenal glands to produce cortisol, and the high levels of cortisol were eventually kind of what the factor that allowed doctors to kind of diagnose the cancer that she had.
Gosh, I'd never heard of this, and I realise I have rather rocketed you through to cancer from the beginning. So go back and tell me, how did you and Sharon meet? Tell me a little bit of a romance.
Bit of romance, yeah. So we were working for the same local authority in Leicestershire back in 2006 when we met. I'd been there for a couple of years. Sharon had been there for a little bit longer than I had. I'd split up with a partner kind of that summer, and she'd separated from her husband sort of that year as well. And it's kind of massive cliche, to be honest. We actually got together at our work's Christmas party. Yep. So yeah, that was December 2006. So it was a bit strange. It's something we had to kind of keep quiet for a little while. Sharon was a senior manager, a lot more senior
your boss?
than I was. Well, she wasn't my boss, no, but she was a kind of a head of service. So the senior manager, I was kind of like very much a junior member of staff at the council. And so yeah, we had to keep that quiet for a little bit, but and with the big age gap as well. So she was 10 years older than me. So yeah, which it was a lot of fun at the time. It was sort of a lot of my mates thought I was crazy. I think my parents thought I was crazy as well.
She had children as well, yeah.
She did, yeah. So three daughters from a previous marriage with her ex. So my three stepdaughters, Kira, Georgia, and Ellie. So they were kind of, I think Georgia was the youngest. She was kind of 6 or 7, I think, perhaps, when Sharon and I got together. Ellie, the eldest, I think she was 10 at the time. So kind of a crazy few years at the very start. So yeah, December 2006 we met. I moved in with Sharon the following summer, so summer of 2007. Moved in with her and the girls, which kind of was a big You can imagine a big kind of
baptism of fire, I'm thinking.
And then, things moved fairly quickly after that point. So, after moving in that summer, we decided that we would start a family of our own, which I was quite surprised that Sharon was happy to do. To be honest, I think we had that conversation very early on in our relationship. I was kind of knew that I wanted children, but I said to her, that quite early on that, if she doesn't, then we'd probably, respectfully say goodbye with no hard feelings. But a little bit to my surprise, she said she wouldn't be adverse to that. So there was only one condition on it, which was that happened before she was 40.
Yeah.
So when we met, I was 26, Sharon was 36. So I think she had something in her head that sort of like said that she needed to not have kids after the age of 40. So that was the only condition.
Sleep deprivation.
Yeah, probably. So that was the only condition. So after moving in summer 2007, Sharon fell pregnant kind of later on that year, and our son arrived, Albie, following July. So July 2009, Albie was born. Which she said was the period after that was kind of one of the happiest periods of her life. She was able to take a decent amount of time off work, and just loved being at home with Albie. And then I don't quite know how this happened, but Sharon fell pregnant quite quickly again after that.
I mean, that's another lesson. I can send you some leaflets.
And then so Orla was born the following July. So there's the 1st of July 2009. So there's about 11 months between Albie and Orla.
So you have 5 children at this point between you.
Yes,
and
correct.
I'm a step parent. My alive husband is a step parent. We know that's not for the faint-hearted. So how did that dynamic work with having 2 small children and then the older girls? Did they like having little siblings?
I'd be lying if I said there wasn't challenges along the way, especially kind of with the eldest daughter, Ellie, who I think at the time, was struggling. I think still with the fact that her parents had split up, and that was kind of weighing quite heavy on her. So there was a lot of change for them, for the girls, especially in that couple of years, which is a relatively short space of time. So looking back, you can fully understand why there would be kind of challenges and a little bit of upset, but. It seems like a long time ago now, but it's all 5 of them now have a beautiful relationship between them. So it's sort of what they've got now. I think was probably worth the heartache and the hassle that we had when Albie and Orla were born, and the girls were still quite young.
And actually, because I always think this, I think I made their lives more difficult, and that I think overall, I mean, John and I have been together now for 5 years, and actually, what I'm seeing is the sibling jealousies, the rivalries, the falling outs are no different to that in a nuclear family. It still happens.
Yeah.
So I think what you create in a blended family is this, I don't know, I think it sounds a bit wanky, but it's kind of magical, isn't it? Once you get it working, like some days you're like, fuck this. And other days it's just incredible because you think I've created this unit. I could talk about step parenting and the joys and the challenges that it brings for hours. But anyway, this is not for today. So at what point in this process, in your relationship, did Sharon find out that she was poorly?
So it was a couple of years after that. I grew up in Norfolk and wanted to move back to Norfolk. So we made a decision that I'd start looking for work in Norfolk, and I was lucky enough to get offered a job sort of back end of kind of 2009. So Orla was only sort of 5 or 6 months old at that point. So I got a job, and as I worked my notice out, Sharon and the girls and the kids moved over. So while I was working my notice out, I kind of was effectively working from home a couple of days, going back to Leicestershire to stay for 3 days. And that was kind of back end of 2009, early 2010. We probably Sharon then was lucky enough to get a job in Norfolk as well. So the day I started my new job in Norfolk was the day Sharon went back to work in Leicestershire after her maternity leave with Orla. So we kind of swap roles.
So ships in the night.
Yeah, a little bit. So she'd come home on a kind of Thursday night, have Friday working from home, weekend at home, work from home on Monday, and then go back to Leicestershire on a Tuesday morning for 3 days. So I was.
Did you still have family in Norfolk to help with the kids?
Yeah. So that was part of the rationale for doing that. Is that my parents, a little bit younger than Sharon's parents, obviously with the age gap between us. Her parents were quite a bit older as well. So lovely people, but they were never going to be kind of hands-on grandparents in the same way that my parents wanted to be. So part of the rationale was to have the kids grow up closer to their grandparents. My sister as well. My sister's only a year younger than me, but she'd had a baby as well, just between Albie and Orla. So it was nice to have kind of persons growing up. Yeah, exactly. So my
and
parents.
I bet in hindsight, you're glad you were there now as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So so we moved, and then it probably kind of 2010, 2011, things kind of started to sort of a few kind of odd happenings with Sharon's health that started to change. So she was struggling to sleep. She was getting by on sort of 3-4 hours sleep a night. She was probably having problems with her joints and sort of struggling to get up the stairs and sort of out of the bath on her own. Sort of her physical appearance was changing. She'd put a bit of weight on that sort of she wasn't able to shift in the same way that she had been able to with with the children post giving birth. So multiple trips to the doctors. I think she got a job as a assistant director at a housing association, so quite a stressful job. I think one doctor said it was kind of work stress. Another kind of suggested that it was postnatal depression. Another doctor,
I'm wondering, like menopause as well, whether that was mentioned, early menopause.
It wasn't at the time, no, but sort of, another doctor said, you're nearly 40, you're not going to lose weight in the same way that you lost weight.
On the scrap heap now.
Yeah, exactly. So there was multiple trips to the doctor with Sharon, because sort of, all of a sudden, I know my body, I know something isn't right here. It's more than just kind of those things.
So she really had to advocate for herself here. She
did, yeah. And I think it was probably the third or fourth trip to the doctor that one of the doctors she saw kind of said, look, there's a syndrome type of cancer here that is really rare, but we want to test for it. And it goes back to this kind of Cushing syndrome is kind of where the body has too much cortisol. And the doctor said, I'd quite like to test for that. And it happened, and when they did the blood said cortisol levels were through the roof. So kind of, which is why she wasn't sleeping. Cortisol's the stress hormone that kicks in with the kind of the fight or flight response that people have. And
it's something that many in our tribe will have experienced, is these enormous spikes in cortisol causing sleepless nights. So it can be caused by stress, but I'm assuming this is on a much bigger scale. For a much longer time.
Most people's, as you said, those spikes kind of, I think on a scale, the one doctor explained it to us, about if you have a scale of kind of between 1 and 100, most people's will kind of move between that 1 and 100 threat. Sharon's was at like 2,000.
Oh, wow.
So he was in the thousands. It was ridiculous. As I said earlier, the issue that she had, the tumours that they eventually found in her liver were producing another hormone that was telling her the adrenal glands to produce cortisol. So her body was effectively producing cortisol 24 hours a day, which is why that had the impact on her kind of the brain fog that she had, the issue with the joints, and yet not being able to sleep. And
was she anxious as well? Because I'm thinking cortisol can make you very anxious and irritable. I mean, I don't like to speak ill of the dead. But...
Yeah, that was kind of a really difficult time for us because pre-diagnosis, life was incredibly stressful, and that there were. She became quite a difficult person to live with at that point because of that stress and that irritability. That when you look back, it's sort of there was nothing we could do, but it did put a real strain on us as a couple and it's kind of the whole family, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's not common, thankfully, but it does happen when people are sick and they change beyond all recognition in many ways. And it's one of those kind of taboo subjects. Like I said, I don't want to speak ill of the dead, but actually there will be people listening and people who have experienced this, and it happens. And I think it's something that we don't want to shy away from too much, because the people who are supporting somebody who's poorly, they're living with somebody that is different to the person that they know, and that takes an enormous toll.
Yeah, and that was exactly how it felt at the time. That sort of, the person that she'd become because of her illness wasn't the person that I'd met.
And at this point, you don't even know why either.
No, exactly. So it did put enormous strain on our relationship. There was a couple of points where I'm not sure, probably, I didn't think we might not survive as a couple. But we did. Eventually, I think that the diagnosis probably came at that kind of that really crucial point for us.
Yeah, sometimes you just need a why, don't you?
Yeah, exactly.
So she has obviously not been feeling well, has had to go back to the doctors 3 or 4 times. And then was it a sort of out of the blue drop of the C word?
It was. So I think because of the complexity and the rarity of the cancer, Sharon wasn't treated initially in Norfolk. We had it diagnosed here. They said we haven't got the expertise here to be able to look after you. So Sharon was referred to Adam Brooks in Cambridge, which was about sort of a 90-minute drive from where we live. So we spent a lot of time on the road between Norwich and Cambridge, for hospital appointments, etc. And so when they initially, so the Cushing syndrome is normally caused by a sort of a small tumour on the pituitary gland in the brain. So when they scanned her head and the pituitary gland was normal, it was a case of, oh, crikey, where do we go now? So she spent about kind of 3 months in Addenbrooke's initially while they worked out where the cortisol was coming from and what was causing that. So eventually they got sort of as far down as her liver. I did some liver biopsies and found some tumours in there. And once they knew what they were dealing with, then it was a case of kind of telling us what to expect. And sort of it came out of the blue. But I think the biggest shock for us, not necessarily is when they said, okay, you have a rare form of cancer, but for us was when they said you have a rare form of cancer for which there is no cure. We can treat you, and we can slow it, but we can't cure it. So I think that was kind of, so many other people that have kind of had cancer that sort of get cured,
especially fairly young, fit, well.
Yeah, so that was kind of our initial thinking, where we knew what it was, that okay, that there will be a cure, and we will, Sharon will work through it. But when the doctor said, unfortunately, it is so rare, the signs that the research isn't well as established as a lot of other cancers. So we can treat you, we can slow things down to stop the progression, but we can't completely cure what's going on. So I mean, they did some things to kind of help. So cortisol was produced by her adrenal glands, so they were removed. So they're kind of like golf ball size to each side of the body. So they were taken out, which meant that then Sharon had to kind of take tablets every day to effectively replace the cortisol that her body should be producing. But other things like adrenaline that would be produced by the adrenal glands, she couldn't produce naturally on her own. So I had to be trained. If there was a car accident or she'd broken a bone or something like that, where normally your body would produce adrenaline to stop you going into shock, I had to be trained how to administer a jab to her in that circumstance if something happened, to keep her from going, to stop her from going into shock.
Cool. So we talk about people becoming, armchair oncologists, but you're now having to learn to administer emergency life-saving medication as well. This is quite a responsibility. Yeah. Now, I just got to draw you back to 3 months in hospital. Was she actually admitted for the full 3 months?
She was, yeah.
That must have been incredibly difficult. How were the kids during this?
It's one of those times where I think you probably recognise this. It gets so stressful that you don't really remember much about it. It's just kind of
head down, get on with it.
It's all a blur. Yeah. And so I mean, the children were still very young by this time. It's sort of Albie and all, they were kind of 2 and 3. I think the girls were then probably just coming into sort of high school age, early teens. So I think we were lucky that we had my parents very close. They sort of played an enormous role, and they still do. in our lives. So it was a case of me just trying to juggle everything.
Were work helpful?
Yeah, work were brilliant, to be honest. And I think even sort of through that period and after, when Sharon died as well, I couldn't have asked for anything more from them, to be honest.
Yeah. When did you? I mean, I'm thinking about the older children here. When did you tell them that this was looking quite serious?
So with the girls, we were honest quite early on.
It's always the best policy, isn't it?
Yeah. So we kind of, we told them that Sharon had cancer, and we're honest about the fact that there is no cure, but there will be treatment that will hopefully slow things down. That we were honest up front with that. The Albion order, we couldn't be. They were too young.
No, of course.
Concept.
So it's a bit of a tough question, but did they give you a sort of rough expectancy? Were you told that you might have months, years? What was the sort of prognosis? I know that often doctors are reluctant to say.
They are reluctant to say, looking back, I think you do your own research and you look at kind of 5-year survival rate. So we knew that kind of the 5-year survival rate was going to be about 50%. But then you had doctors that kind of, were on the positive side saying, but a lot of people have this cancer will die for other things with this cancer rather than from it.
Yeah.
So
there's some hope here.
Yeah, was a bit of hope involved, but it's just saying there's support groups, etc. So Sharon joined a few of those for people with that type of cancer. So we'd go to kind of regular regional meetings, and people would understand better the kind of the treatments that people were going through. So she sort of sought out a community and was quite proactive in seeking support. Yeah, but she must have been absolutely. I mean, you both must have been terrified, no doubt of that. But one of the things that I, as a mum, my biggest fear, and particularly since Ben died, is of leaving my kids. That's making me go all fist-pumping now. And if I know that it must have been terrifying for her, but how did she cope with that? How did she manage that knowledge that she probably wasn't going to see her children grow up? Yeah, I mean that was the hardest bit for Sharon. Was I didn't see her. She was so stoic. She didn't get upset very often. But when it was the kind of the things with the kids that she knew that she was going to perhaps miss, that is when she got upset. So, things like, big birthdays, 18th, 21s, graduations, engagements, proms, exams, all those big life moments that kind of you look forward to as a parent. I mean, that was the thing that weighed heaviest on her was missing those, I think. So the way she dealt with that was purely, I think, to the ones that she was around for, was
made them really special.
Make 100% the most of those opportunities that she had. So, I mean, it's one of those kind of, and just time with the children. One of the cruelest ironies, I guess, is that we were quite fortunate in a way that Sharon's employer at the time had an income protection scheme. So even though Sharon effectively, once she finished work, she never went back, and we were still provided with 75% of her salary, which probably kept us afloat, to be honest. I think at the time I wouldn't survive. We wouldn't survive as a family just on my salary at the time. And it's a very real pressure and fear, isn't it? I mean, we talk about life insurance, which some people don't have, some people do. But there's also things like income protection and critical illness cover. And so many of us never even think to take that, that extra bit of money on the policy every month. But if you can't work because you're ill, it could be years. Then this will give you it ended up being Sharon didn't go back to work. But from the time she was diagnosed in sort of late 2011 until she died, and so we had her income covered. And I said the thing about the irony of that is that all of when she was diagnosed, Orla was probably 2.5, and we were both, they hadn't started school yet, nursery and stuff like that. But so Sharon got to spend a whole load more time with the kids that ordinarily she wouldn't have done. Yeah. Because, you'd be juggling work and life. So I look back at sort of, with a type of running joke in our family that all Sharon and Orla did was just go for coffee and cake every day of the week, because that's what they did. Because when Albie started school, Orla still had another year to go at home before she started, and that time I think is kind of priceless, isn't it? Because as I said, ordinarily you'd be juggling work. The position that Sharon's in, she was probably going to be working 45, 50 hours a week. So to have that time with them.
It's one of those sort of mixed blessings, isn't it? Because Ben was very much a family man, and he had a business in France, and he'd work a week abroad, 3 weeks at home. So he was school runs, he was there in the midst of it all, and I'm eternally grateful for that. But I also felt that perhaps the gap was bigger for the children, because a lot of dads and parents in general will have to work long hours. They'll come home at bedtime. So yes, I'm really grateful for it, but I also felt that real they had him so much and now he's gone. But I think there's that cliche, isn't there, that nobody on their deathbed says, I wish I'd earned more money, I wish I'd worked more hours. It's always, I wish I'd spent more time with the people I loved. So for her to have that opportunity, I don't know if I like that word in this situation, but for her to be able to not have to worry about finances and to be able to just enjoy the children while they were little. We talk about sometimes there being a few gifts in cancer. Maybe that's a little gift. I don't know, but I'm glad that she got that time with them, and actually she exceeded expectations. Then she got 7 years.
Not far off. So I think we used to, between us, we used to use the phrase the best before date, which is probably a bit more beating the eyes. You take that kind of that humour,
the dark humour
between us. Yeah,
I like that. So presumably, the way you've described Sharon is that she was quite active and able to sort of continue her life to a certain extent. She was able to spend time with the kids. At what point did the illness really start to take over and you see a big deterioration?
So I think, if you to have met Sharon during her illness, up until the last couple of months, you wouldn't have known she was ill. The type of chemo she was having wasn't the sort that affected her hair. So outwardly, she looked very healthy. It's kind of, I guess that's quite a kind of cruel thing as well, that she was so ill but looked so well. It was probably only until the last 4 months of her life, really, where things kind of did progress very, very quickly. One of Sharon's dreams, we holidayed a lot in France and Europe when the kids were growing up. So one of Sharon's dreams was to buy a house in France, which we actually did in 2017. We put the bullet and bought a house, which was crazy at the time.
Where in France?
So central France, not far from the closest main city is Limoges. So kind of like right in the middle, 3 hours south of Paris. We got the keys August 2017. So that year we spent as much time as we possibly could. It was an old farmhouse that we needed a bit of work doing, so we did that ourselves. And she put a load of energy.
I was just going to say, did you do this yourselves? It's incredible.
A little bit of help from professionals, but otherwise we did it all. We did it all ourselves. So we went there. We spent a week down there. So we got the keys in August of that year. Spent quite a lot of time. I think 3 weeks there that summer. But then we went down again at October half term. The four of us. Some of the pictures from that week, it is just Sharon. She looks kind of perfectly healthy. You wouldn't know she was ill. But if you fast forward a couple of months to Christmas, some pictures of Sharon at Christmas, and she's lost a lot of weight and looks very frail. And then forward on to March, frailer still. So it was kind of, I guess, between sort of November and the March, really, where things started to move quite quickly.
And during this time, was Sharon quite open about her diagnosis? Had she sort of talked to friends and family about it? I know you said she talked to support groups, but I'm just thinking, living with a terminal diagnosis, but looking to the outside world like you're perfectly healthy, that's a very strange place to be, a very scary place to be.
It is, and she was incredibly open. massively. I mean, we started a charity to try and raise funds for research into the type of cancer she had, and we got linked up with another kind of bigger campaign. So she would kind of host fundraising events, etc. That sort of that were linked to this bigger campaign. So she was always kind of quite upfront. She joined as I said, the support groups. There was another group in Norfolk, the Rosie group, which is for women living with kind of secondary cancer, that she was a big part of as well. One of the youngest in the group, actually, sort of, because of the age profile of that particular group. So it was, she was always very open. But I think, a couple of people saw Sharon at Christmas that year that sort of hadn't seen her for a little while and kind of
Bit
said,
of a shock.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what about you in this time? Did you get any support? Were you having any counselling or anything like that?
Yeah, I was. So I mean, going back to my employer being really good, we had a kind of an employee assistance scheme at work that offered counselling. So, I went to see a little lady. She was a lovely lady that lives sort of a few miles from where we were, and she had a beautiful cottage in the country. I saw her for the first time actually not long after Sharon's diagnosis, just to kind of think about how I coped with what was coming. And then I had a bit of a gap for a few years, and I saw her again after Sharon died as well. And I work paid for all of that. So,
I mean, I know the work paying is a really helpful factor, because a lot of people are put off by the potentially the high cost of counselling. But I'm also thinking you should take some credit for this, because not many people, and particularly, I hate to gender stereotype, but not many men are proactive in looking after their mental health. So I think the reason that you're sat here today talking to me and, on your feet and functioning is probably because of how taking responsibility at this point. And actually, it's something that John did as well. He sought counselling very quickly after Sarah died and sort of threw himself into it, whereas I sort of titted about for 3 years, refusing to open Pandora's box. And I know that it very much delayed my grieving.
Yeah.
Now, let's go a little further forward. So at Christmas, Sharon is starting to look and presumably feel less like herself. She's starting to get quite poorly. What was the next part of the voyage? Yeah,
so kind of starting around Christmas, she'd pick up regular chest infections, and because of the chemo, etc., that became quite difficult for her to shift. So what would happen is that normally she'd go into hospital for a week or 10 days. They'd look after her. They'd get a pump full of the antibiotics. She'd get rid of the chest infection. And she'd come home. I think she went in for a couple of days between Christmas and New Year. So that would have been 2018. But I think looking back, I think she probably knew what was coming. We'd phoned the hospital and said, look, she's struggling. Can we bring her in? There's I can't remember the name of it now, but the Norfolk Norwich Hospital have got a dedicated sort of emergency oncology ward where people that are struggling can go and get sort of a bit of, without having to go through A&E, which is really good.
That is good.
And so we were taking the kids around to mum and dad's, and instead of going straight to hospital, she said, can we just pop to the coast for a bit? So as you were, we're half an hour from the coast, so we went and she just wanted to sit and listen to the sea. So we sat in the car park overlooking the beach up in North Norfolk and just listened to the waves for a bit, and then moved on to hospital. But that happened 2 or 3 times, kind of between sort of Christmas and March, where she'd get an infection. She'd go in for anything between, I guess, 3 days and a week, 10 days, and she'd come home again. I think, the last time she went in, we'll just kind of assume that would be it again, that she would sort of, she would get better and then come home. It's kind of March now. She picked up this infection, ambulance came, took her in. And that was on Saturday. Saturday morning, I'd gone with her. Kids had gone to mum and dad's. I hadn't thought anything of it. I just kind of, we actually went into resus because she was blue lighted in on the ambulance. So sat with her that day, and it got to about kind of 6 o'clock, and I'm going to move her to a ward. They got her comfortable, and I went home. The kids were going to stay at my mum and dad's that night. And so I came home to an empty house. And then Sunday morning, I woke up and it was Mother's Day. And I got in the shower and I come out of the shower and had a couple of missed calls on my phone, but with a withheld number. And I didn't think anything more of it. I popped round to my mum and dad's just to see the kids, just to make sure they're all right. And my sister was there, obviously, to see my mum as well, with it being Mother's Day. And her phone went. And it was a friend of hers that works at the hospital. And she, the chap Mike on the phone, said to my sister, we're trying to get hold of your brother. Do you know where he is? And she's like, well, he's right here with me at mum and dad's. And he was like, he needs to come in. We need to speak to him fairly urgently. So when you get a call like that, it's sort of like that kind of, panics you a bit. So my sister drove me in to the hospital. And we got in, we saw Sharon very briefly, and she was in bed sleeping. But so we got taken into a side room by a doctor, one of the sort of junior doctors that was working on a case, and he said, unfortunately, we've tried through the night. She's not taking any, or not passing any fluids. And their kidneys are failing now. So there's nothing we can do now to help apart from keep her comfortable. So at that point, he said you're probably looking at kind of 2 weeks maximum from that point. So my sister was with me in the room when we were told that. So, she's part of my kind of support network, and it was fantastic that I had, her with me at that point. But I think the hardest part then that day was a couple of really difficult parts was actually, because it was a Sunday and Sharon's consultant wasn't at work, I actually had to go and tell Sharon that. Which, without any kind of support from a medical professional. Which
I'm guessing that this is because there is a glimmer of hope in your story. She's outlived this 5-year expectation. You've been told there is a small chance of people living a full life with this condition. And then I don't know, and I'm completely hypothesizing, but even you said looking back at the photos, you thought how poorly she looked, but at the time you would have probably your brain would have been justifying it. Oh, it's this, it's this, it's this. And then the moment that you're sat in that room with your sister and the doctor, and they're saying to you, this is it. There is nothing left we can do. It must have felt like the bottom of your world fell out, because the moment that hope goes, that is the moment that the reality of what is happening lands. And to then have to go and tell the woman that you love that her days are limited, and then presumably you've got to go and tell the bloody kids as well.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think looking back, it's sort of that day was always going to come. But I think you're right. It's that hope that you do try and keep in the back of your mind that perhaps that day isn't going to come. Mm-hmm. So even though it was, it wasn't unexpected, it was still devastating to hear that and have to. And Sharon's response was, when I told her, she goes, it'll be fine. I can't remember the name of her doctor now, but she said he'll be back in tomorrow. He'll sort it. So even then, she kind of didn't really want to face up to that prospect herself.
Did you manage to get the kids in to see her, the older ones? Did the girls come?
Yeah. So that was a really tough one. So Kira, my middle stepdaughter, she was at university at the time over in Birmingham. So she'd come back to see Sharon as it was Mother's Day. So it was nice that kind of all three girls were around, but I phoned them and had sort of, just basically said, look, you need to, at that time they were all kind of with boyfriends and they weren't necessarily all at home at the same time. I said, look, I'm at the hospital with your mum, you need to come in, I need to speak to you, which I did. I did the same with my mum and dad. They brought Albion Orla in. So I told all 5 of them at the same time.
How did they react?
So bizarrely, obviously, the girls were all incredibly upset, as you would expect. Albion Orla cried, and I took them in to see Sharon after that, and they both ran over and kind of jumped up on the bed. That's been the only time, even when I told them that when we got to fast forwarding a couple of days to the Wednesday when she died, I told them, told Albert and all that they didn't cry at that time.
Yeah.
Stone
cold psychopaths.
Yeah, so sort of
it's weird, isn't it?
It is. So it was tough, as you'd expect. But
the fact that they got the opportunity to go and see her, and that they, in that wonderful, innocent, childlike way, have run and jumped on the bed, sure she loved it. But I mean, it's a completely different circumstance, but I took mine and Ben's second child to see his dad when he was dying, and I would just remember the smile on his face. And, there's something about seeing that life carries on, perhaps, and that those babies they were still there. And you must have had conversations about what you would do when and if she died. Had you done that? Had you sat down and had these really difficult conversations?
We hadn't, and that's part of, I guess, the learning when I've, of this, and when I've spoken to other people in my position, is that I think I panicked. One of the times she got taken to hospital, kind of in that period between sort of Christmas and March, the paramedics, and I explained the situation, and the paramedics left. One of them said to me, "Is there a DNR in place?" And I was like, fuck no, I've got no idea. No, there isn't in place.
Yeah.
We've not even had that conversation. But it was the fact that we got to a point now where that question had been asked. It's kind of made me think that actually we probably do need to have those conversations, but we'd never got round to them. I think Sharon had originally, kind of when she did go into hospital, said that she wanted to be at home. And we had a conversation with a consultant and actually changed our mind on that one. So she was able to get a place in a hospice. And I think that was probably down to me more than anything. It didn't my thinking and saying I think she'd rather sort of be somewhere familiar. But I kind of said to her, look, I don't feel confident that I can give you the care that you need.
No, and I think
we're able to get a place in a hospice.
And it can make you feel quite guilty, especially if the person wants to be at home. But I think I mean, I have not been in this position, but I think sometimes you're just totally out of your depth. Yeah, how can we keep on top of the pain and the care? And actually, often when people go into hospice, what they experience is that kind of sense of calm and being looked after and being safe. And you can kind of revert back to being husband again, which is a bit of a gift as well, because you become this, like we said, you become this specialist and carer and advocate. And actually, when you are able to hand over the physical care to the hospice, you can be the support and the emotional care again. Yeah.
We were lucky enough to get a place, Priscilla Bacon in Norwich, which is a brilliant institution. And so we were all able to kind of stay overnight. So I think she got moved over on the Monday. And we had a steady stream of family and friends that came to see her. Even though the doctor originally said that you're looking at 2 weeks max, it was the Wednesday night that she went in the end. So, and even that night, when one of the consultants was looking after her when she left for work at the end of the day, she said to me, "I don't think it's going to be tonight. It might be kind of the next couple of days." But in the end, it was 3 hours later that night. So,
were you there?
Yeah. So I was with her, and the girls were with her as well. So the four of us were with her. I decided I didn't want the children to be.
No,
they weren't old enough at that point.
And it would have been really confusing for them, and it perhaps would have meant that you would have had to shut down your own emotions to protect them. So she died surrounded by people that she loved.
She did, yep.
And it's an enormous injustice that she died so young, but I'm glad that she had you guys with her.
Thank you.
Now, you mentioned a little bit about the younger children and this weird phenomenon of children being told catastrophic news, that's absolutely ripping your heart out of your chest, and them seeming to be unbothered. That's something else, isn't it? Because until it happens to you, and until you speak about it to other people who it's happened to you, you think there's something wrong with your kids. You're like, what have I raised? But we know now that it's an emotional protection. They haven't got the emotional intelligence and maturity to process something of this magnitude. But one of the things I really liked in your application, I'm just going to refer back to it here, bear with me, was that you said, I'm going to quote verbatim here, "I've spent the time since trying my very best to ensure our children feel confident about the future and are growing up to be well-balanced individuals." So I want them to have confidence in the future. This really stuck out for me because that's exactly what you need to provide for them, because their future was very uncertain. You know, we talk a lot about children's books and films. The worst thing that can happen to a child is always the death of a parent. So how can they trust that the future is going to be safe? And how can you promise them that when we both know that you can't? So I'm just really curious as to how you have supported, particularly the younger children. And also just, are you still close to your 3 daughters, the stepdaughters? I'm assuming that you are I thought you must be, yeah. So yeah, what sort of, I hate this word, but what sort of strategies have you used to support the younger 2 kids?
I can't take all of the credit for this. There's a network of people around me that have been absolutely brilliant, and have been so helpful in kind of over the last, we're nearly 7 years in now, and that have been part of that. It's not just me. So, I mean, my parents have been incredible. They've been a constant in their lives, and it's so nice now. My teenage, Alvin, Laura, 15 and 16, they still go around every week and stay the night, and we get spoiled by their grandparents, and they have a really close bond with them. The girls as well were absolutely amazing. They're almost kind of like mini mums for them. So the age the girls are now are kind of 25, 27 and 28. They're like kind of surrogate mums, if you like, that they all spend a lot of time together, which is nice. They've all moved out now. They're all kind of living independently. But they still make a lot of effort to see each other. The school were brilliant as well. I mean, tragically, Sharon was one of 4 mums that died within about 2 years from our school. And the school the school that the kids were at was a tiny county village primary school just outside Norwich. I think at the time 60 kids at the whole school, so you can probably about 40 families maybe, with families with more than one kid. And so Sharon was one of 4 that 4 months that died within I think probably a 2-year period. So the school were really proactive around what they did to support the kids. So one of the local charities, Nelson Journey, which is a kind of a children's bereavement charity, that all of the staff went through some training that was delivered by Nelson's Journey, so they could understand a bit more about what the children were going through. So they were brilliant.
Did they? I don't know whether we talk a lot as well in widowhood about finding your tribe, about finding people that get you, that get what you're going through. And the importance of finding that for children. And did they make friends or have any interaction with the other children who'd lost a mum? Because I'm wondering if that was something that helped them, or, I mean, perhaps not. Kids do what kids do, right?
To a certain extent. I mean, one of the girls that lost her mum, this was a little bit afterwards, actually. I think she was probably the last one, was a good friend of ours. So they would spend a lot of time together, and in the aftermath of that other mum, I spent a lot of time with her husband as well, just trying to help him through things.
You become the grief Sherpa, you see. This is one of my prior guests. He referred to this term, and I love it. It's the grief Sherpa. So you've been through it, you've navigated it, and then you sort of hold somebody's hand, and you can't help, you can't do it for them, but you can help. And when you talked about having a network, and that's what enabled you to be a good parent, to keep these children safe and protected. And I think that made a lot of sense to me as well, because we can't do it on our own.
No.
You can't. It's too difficult. It's too hard. And the people that are able to do it successfully do it because other people help them. But I think that's such an important message to people who are perhaps not widowed, or even those who have been, is just, it might be, can I just take the kids for an hour? Should I get them McDonald's on Saturday? Something like that. It doesn't have to be, I'll look after your children for a week when you go on a luxury retreat. I mean, if anybody would like to, I'm up for that. But it doesn't have to be a huge gesture. So as the children have got older, and we are on a very spookily close timeline because Mother's Day 2018 was the last day I spent with Ben, and he died on the Monday, which was the 12th. So as you're saying your dates, they are spookily similar. So how have you acknowledged things like anniversaries, birthdays? What do you do something as a family?
We did in the very early days, probably less so now. So yeah, I think that the anniversary of Sharon's death is not something that we really celebrate. I think we acknowledge it. I'll maybe go to the burial ground, but yeah, that's not a day that we kind of we do too much. And again, birthday, Sharon's birthday, the first couple of years, we made sure that we got together. Less so now, and not because we don't remember it, but it's because I think the way I like to look at it is that I think we're living the lives now that Sharon would have wanted us to do. So we're all kind of we're all so busy.
And also then it's not like you're forgetting them the rest of the time. This is something, because I sometimes don't feel, I do have this weird thing in that body keeps score where you feel a bit cranky and you're like, why do I feel so griefy and horrible? And then you look at the date and you're like, oh, it was our first date 10 years ago, whatever. But I've tried really hard to do nice things on the anniversary of his death. We've gone and thrown bottles of messages into the sea, and we've let off balloons and done all the very non-ecological things you're meant to do. But the last couple of years, on the 12th of March, I just haven't been able to do it. And I just thought, okay, it's just a shit day. It's a shit day. It's a day that your husband died. You don't have to try and make this nice for the children. And I interviewed somebody who'd lost their dad quite young, and she said to me, enforced grief is really damaging. And you think, because you're like, it's your dad's birthday, should we go and actually sometimes the kids don't want that. They need to be able to come to you at the times that they're feeling griefy, not on a prescribed schedule of important dates in the calendar. And I think that we often fall into that trap of thinking that we're not remembering them and respecting them if we're not doing a Facebook post, if we're not, I don't know, sharing 100 pictures of their life. And it doesn't mean that we've forgotten them. It doesn't mean that we don't care. It just means that we're sick of publicly sharing sometimes.
No, absolutely agree. So, but yeah, I think that kind of feeling that you just mentioned there, I tend to have kind of not around this time of year. So Sharon's birthday would have been in November, only a week before mine. So her birthday was the 13th, mine's the 19th. Our wedding anniversary is in December as well. So I tend to, in my head, kind of inwardly struggle a little bit with November and December.
And those are dates that are yours. Like their birthday, that's the date of their birth. And then your wedding anniversary, that's something that's so personal and just for you too. So I often feel quite sad around my wedding anniversary because it was such a happy time. You're so happy and so full of innocence, and you stand there and say your vows in sickness and in health, but you don't think you need to mean them at that point in your life. And then here we are. So tell me, Mark, what does life look like for you now? Are you still in Norfolk? Are you still?
Yeah, still in Norfolk. We've moved a couple of times since Sharon died. So where we were, the house that we were in when she died, we were renting. But after she died, I was able to buy somewhere. So initially, I bought somewhere big enough to house all six of us. But now the girls have kind of moved on and are independent. We downsized last year. So it's just me, Albie, and Orla now in the house. But I'm saying life is good. It's sort of it's tough at times. I've got a brilliant network of friends around me. I've got a partner, Claire, that I've been with for a number of years, and she's part of my network in terms of help and support that I need. She was a friend of Sharon's, which presented us with a few problems at the very beginning. But Claire lost her mum when she was a teenager as well, so she understands what the kids are going through.
That's actually a really important person to have around them, isn't it? Somebody that absolutely understands what they're going through.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the nature of what she does professionally, she is a very kind and caring person. So I've been able to kind of draw, she's in a different job now, but before that, she used to work with young children that sort of needed emotional support for various reasons. So I've been able to kind of bounce ideas and stuff with you, things like counselling for the kids. So it's always something that's been on offer, but there's always something the kids have kind of said, no, they don't really need. And I've not really pushed it, but, based on, Claire's advice to say, actually, if they're fine and they're doing well at school and they seem to be thriving, don't kind of rock that boat, because
and that's that kind of forced grief, isn't it? If they're doing okay.
Yeah.
And for Claire, I'm thinking the fact that she knew Sharon, that in some ways must be an enormous blessing, because you've still got the shared history of Sharon. Her existence is still tangible and there. But of course, it must have been a little bit strange.
Yeah, hugely. She was a close friend of Sharon's. And, with someone that we'd known for a long time. The kids went to school together. Georgia actually used to babysit for her kids when they were younger. So sort of they've been a part of, she's been a part of our life for quite a while. But it was honest, it's never just kind of caught me by surprise, to be honest.
Does that, doesn't
it? But here we are. And it wasn't without its complications very early on, especially, with the girls. They took a bit of time to get their heads around that. But I think they're seeing now that, what benefit Claire brings to my life. And when I was having a conversation, listening to these difficult conversations very on with the girls, that part of my is that Claire's good for me in terms of what she offers me, and if she's good for me, she's good for them.
Yeah. You were happily married. I was happily married. I couldn't fathom that I would meet somebody else, particularly not in the relatively short time that I did. I would have been aghast if somebody had said that to me. But when you love somebody, and they die, you haven't got all that animosity, the anger, the bitterness that can come from a divorce or separation. And you're sort of more open to love. I think because you know what it feels like, you know what it looks like. I don't want to live without love. Like, that's really sad. And I still love Ben. I still love Ben to my absolute core, and I always will, but he's not here. And me honouring him by staying lonely for, hope to have at least 40 years, I don't think that is honouring. I think that's torturing myself and denying myself and my kids this safe, secure family environment that they're growing up in. Yeah, and much like you, I don't want my kids to be defined by this horrible thing that happened to them. I want them to know about Ben and understand that it was a terrible, terrible thing. But they're all, and I'm touching wood furiously here, well-balanced, kind, empathetic human beings. And I'm really proud of them, and you must be of yours as well.
Yeah, hugely. And I was going to say that one of the last conversations I had with Sharon when she was still able to hold them was that she told me that I need to go and live my life and show the children what it means to be happy, and that her dying isn't the end of their happiness, and I think, or my happiness as well, to be honest. So I think we've struck that balance now. I think where kind of life is good, as I said, and I've got a job I love. The children are all doing well. Albie has just started sixth form. We're probably going to be off for university open days next year, which is terrifying.
See, in my head, even just from hearing you talk about him, he's a little boy.
He's taller than me now. He's 16, but he's an inch taller than me. So it's
I got a 14-year-old that's 6'2". It's good job he's a sweet boy, because he's massive. I'd have no authority otherwise.
Yeah. And so, that's what I'm trying to do. Bizarrely, I mean, when I say life is good, it is good. And there's always that kind of tinge of sadness behind it. But I started a new job 3.5 years ago. And I absolutely love it. But obviously, when you move jobs, the people that you start working with don't necessarily know what your background is. And I can remember not long after starting work, and I try and do as much as I can with the kids, just in terms of like living life, holidays, festivals, just doing stuff that just go, fuck it, we'll do it, because why not? And I can remember explaining to someone that that I'm a widow and bringing the kids up on my own. And someone sort of said, all right, I never would have known. And that struck me as being kind of sort of like as if there was something that I needed to be doing.
Yeah, where was your black veil?
That sort of like...
Leave it at home that day.
Yeah. And so I guess that's probably a sort of a strange compliment in a way, that outwardly, I guess people see me living a life with the children and with Claire and with the girls and, with my friends. My friends throughout all of this have been absolutely brilliant. I've got a kind of a network of mates that sort of, we've been mates since high school, for over 30 years now. And they've all been to a man absolutely brilliant. When I've really needed it, so I go away and I do fun stuff because life's too short not to do those things.
Yeah, it is. And even in the speech I read at Ben's, I wrote a letter to him for his memorial, and I think one of the lines in it is, I promise to show the children what a beautiful world still awaits them. And that's what I'm trying to do. We go on as many holidays as we can afford. We go and see shows in London. We do festivals. And now I know you're a festival man. Woodstock 2025 is in the possible pipeline. So I'll let you know. And it just means that, and sometimes these things don't work out. Sometimes you do something, you think, oh my God, why have I done this? But you try everything. And that all comes down to that choice. It's that we know we're going to be sad for the rest of our lives, but we're also allowed to be happy. And choosing to be happy is kind of the fundamental step that you have to take, isn't it?
It is, but then I'm not sure it is a choice, to be honest, because when I look at I think, maybe happiness is, but when you've got children involved, I don't think you really have a choice but to...
being brave, yes. Yeah,
life goes on for them, and so you need to kind of pull your shit together, I think, and just get on with it for their benefit. I don't think I had any other choice but to go back to work and to carry on providing, and because otherwise life would be pretty miserable for them, and that's not what I promised Sharon I would do.
Yeah, this is I was forced to have to run the business, but things like having to get up and get the boys to school. Tabby was 6 months old, so having to get up and feed her. And I can remember saying to my mum, I'm going to take her to some baby singing groups. So my mum sort of looked, are you sure? Sure you're in the right mental place for this? I said, but I can't let her be sad. I can't let her just sit and, her only interaction be with me crying. She needs to be out of the house. My mum and dad were brilliant. They moved in with me. They were fantastic. But you have to go and show them that there's more outside of that sadness. And I mean, that Christmas I took the kids away on an actual aeroplane, and I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, how did I do that? But you just do, don't you? You put in your case, your big boy pants on, in my case, big girl pants on, and you get on with it. Well, Mark, it has been an absolute pleasure to talk to you today. Thank you so much for coming on. And like I said at the beginning, it really is so important to get these male voices and perspectives, because it is different. And I know you had a really, really good support network, but so often men don't. And I'm talking about my alive husband here as well, because when, he's a bloke on his own with a daughter, and kids weren't coming around for play dates. There's so much sort of, I don't know, like still so much stigma around, I guess, single blokes, but also widowers, and they don't always have that support. So just by creating these episodes, you are doing a massive amount for other people out there.
I hope so.
Before I let you go, I just wondered if you would tell me the name of the charity that Sharon supported.
So we set our own up, which has since disbanded. But we got involved in a kind of a campaign. I can't remember the name of it now. It was all very bizarre. So we were we got linked with a university in Sweden that were developing a potential kind of on the vaccination for this type of vaccine for this cancer. And we got invited to the Swedish embassy. It was all very bizarre. We were basically invited to a function with the people coming over. But yeah,
send me your details afterwards if you get a chance, because it might just be somewhere that we can direct people to if they want any more support or information.
Yeah, sure.
All right, brilliant. Thank you ever so much for coming on today, Mark. It's been absolutely delightful to speak to you, and I wish you and your enormous family all the best for the future.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
And for everybody else out there that's listening, thank you ever so much for being part of this. If you want to message us, you know where to find me. I'm on Instagram at widowedaf. And if you've got any questions for Mark, I'm sure he'd be delighted if I put them to him. But for now, take care of yourselves out there. Lots of love and goodbye. Thank you for listening. If you found this episode helpful, hit follow or subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And if you think someone else may benefit from this, please do share. We'd also really appreciate a quick review. It helps more people find the show. Thank you again, and see you next time on Widowed AF.